Hello, everybody. So this is going to be our first sort of instructional video. So please make sure that you have your piece of paper with your Cornell notes taking lines on it ready to go so that you can begin taking notes on this assignment. If you don't have that, please pause this video and get that set up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to be talking today about, if this will load, there we go, evolution by natural selection. So how does evolution occur? And the theory derived by Charles Darwin is it occurs through natural selection. And so we're going to talk about what that actually looks like and how he came up with that over the course of the next several videos. Okay, so first up, Charles Darwin. He's a naturalist, so he studied plants and animals, and he wrote this book called On the Origin of Species in 1859, which sort of introduced the world to this idea of evolution by natural selection. So he traveled around on the HMS Beagle. So that was this big ship, and it traveled all around the world. Let's see, come on. It's a little slow while I'm in presentation mode. Apologies for that. Here we go. Bye, HMS Beagle. All right, so he traveled all over the world to many places aside from the Galapagos Island, although the Galapagos Islands certainly were the most famous aspects of his journey. While he was traveling to the Galapagos Island, there were some very specific traits to the islands that were important. For example, they were far enough away from the mainland that animals that lived on these islands were not able to mate with the animals on the mainland. Additionally, the islands were far enough apart from one another that they may shared some similar species early on, but over time, those animals were also not able to cross mate with one another. And so each of the islands housed their very specific animals to that island. And there are three really important ones to understanding how Charles Darwin came up with this idea of natural selection. Of course, the most famous one is the Galapagos tortoise. So Charles Darwin noticed that these tortoises looked very similar to tortoises on the mainland, except they were gigantic, right? So we have the first one, which is the dome tortoise, looks the most like the mainland tortoises aside from its size, and it eats grass and kind of lives and acts very similar to mainland tortoises. However, the saddleback tortoise has this very high collar at the back of its neck, which allows its very long neck to reach up to cactus paddles that are very high, because this is the food source that is available to it on the island in which it lives. So right away, Charles Darwin is noticing that the animals are different, and the differences are very much related to the environment that they live in and the food sources that are available to them. So similarly, there are iguanas on the mainland, South America, as well as lots of other places in the world. And these iguanas primarily live on land. They eat cactus, insects, maybe carrion, which are like dead animals. This is one that is found on one of the islands of the Galapagos, and it looks very similar to the kinds that we would see in other parts of the world. But on another island in the Galapagos, we have the marine iguana. This iguana is different because it swims. It eats algae off the rocks. And if you take a look at their noses, they're shaped very differently. The marine iguana's nose is sort of snubbed, which makes it very good for chewing the algae off of these rocks, whereas this one is much better for allowing it to catch insects or eat cactus on land. Okay, the third and final species from the Galapagos Island that really helped Charles Darwin understand how these species varied from island to island were the Galapagos finches. So each finch, he noticed, had a beak that was very well suited to whatever food that was available to it on its island. And so even though they were all a finch species, they had changed in order to be well adapted to the food sources that were available on their island. Okay, so in summary, there's this guy called Charles Darwin. He traveled all over the world on the HMS Beagle, and he noticed that animals had variations depending on where they were found, and those variations were very specifically well suited to the environment in which they lived. Okay, hopefully you took some notes. If not, maybe rewind and jot a few things down. Make sure you're pausing along the way, and we'll have another video in a moment.